Hi everyone, welcome to this video about how to draw in your sketchbook. I'm Mitch Leeuwen, and as you maybe seen on my social media accounts, I draw a lot in my sketchbook. So I wanted to make this course because I think it's really useful to draw a lot in your sketchbook. And maybe not even in your sketchbook, but also on paper with pencil or pen can be really beneficial. So let me start. The first thing I want to talk about is when I was working in a day job where I had to do a lot of graphic design. I had to travel with the train to my work, so I usually brought my sketchbook with me in my bag. A sketchbook like this, A5. And what I just did, I was drawing a lot of people around me. So I put it on my lap, just open it, taking a pencil, and drawing people in the train. And at first it can be really scary, especially because drawing publicly can be really scary because you have the feeling everybody's watching you. But that's also good practice because when you're working at studio, there are also people around you, but those people know you and have to work with you. So you need to, when you're working in studio, you need to get to start feeling comfortable when people are looking over your shoulder. It's just better to get over that feeling. So when you're drawing in the train, for example, or in the bus or in the park or wherever, and you have strangers looking over your shoulders, that's a really good practice because why would you care what a stranger think about what you're drawing? That's less scary than your colleagues or your fellow students, etc. So at first it can be really scary, but I would recommend you to get comfortable with that feeling. And it was really hard for me as well. And I think almost everyone has that in the first place. I still don't feel really comfortable when people are looking over my shoulder, but ignore that feeling and just draw. So I did a lot of figure drawing in the train, so watching at people, see how they sit. And one trick to, if you're drawing people, it can be quite scary that they are seeing you're drawing them. So how do you avoid that they see you're drawing them? And what I usually do is I pick people who are sitting away at least 5 meters away. And then when I'm drawing them, and then when I start noticing I'm drawing them, I just look a little bit past them, so they have the feeling I'm drawing someone behind them. And then they're thinking, oh, he's not drawing me, who cares? And in all the years I've drawn, I maybe 3 times people come to me, hey, why are you drawing me? And usually it's not that big of a deal, but I would really encourage you to do that. Other things you can do is you can go to the park or any place where you can draw animals or life. Maybe you can draw buildings you see. It's all good to learn how to draw from life. Maybe first realistically and then try to cartoonify it. Especially when you're starting out, it's really good to practice drawing a bit realistically. So every time I try to fill a page, for example, dogs or cats, and it can be really hard to pick every day a theme to draw in. So let me tell about an example about it. So, for example, if I was going tomorrow to work and I don't want to draw people who are sitting in the train, what I sometimes do is I use my phone, and then the day before I'm going to travel in the train and use my sketchbook, I just go to a search engine or the internet and I look for the images. So maybe I want to draw dogs, or maybe I just want to draw people faces. So you enter that on the internet and you find a ton of images with people faces or dogs or anything. Maybe you want to study your favorite artist. That's also really good. Of course, if you're going to publish it, name that artist you are studying clearly. You don't want let people think you are stealing their work or something. So be really clear about that if you're doing that. But it can be really useful. So basically, I save photos on my phone, and then the next day I go to the train. I take a seat. I put my bag on my lap, and I put my sketchbook on top of that, and I put my phone like this in my sketchbook, and then on the other page I start drawing from the photo, and a lot of times I'm using photos to study on. So I have a whole library of photos on my phone, the weirdest photos. So I can really recommend that. So as I said before, because I used to bring it a lot in the train, I like to use A5 sketchbook. And because this is a nice size to bring with you. I also tried A4 sketchbooks like these, but for me these were way too big. But maybe that works for you. And that's also something I would recommend. A lot of times I get questions from people, what kind of sketchbook are you using? At the moment I'm using Art Creation, and because I really like the paper. It's quite thick, it's rough but not too rough, and it's just great for pencil. So Art Creation is really nice. They are not too expensive. I like to avoid really expensive sketchbooks, because when I mess up a page, I don't want to feel guilty or something. I want to make mistakes and don't feel I'm wasting a lot of money. So pick sketchbooks that you don't think are too expensive, and try to find something that works for you. What I would recommend, of course, if you can, go to a local art store and buy some different sketchbooks and try out what works best for you. I think that's the best thing. Or go to an online shop where you can order nice sketchbooks. Just look at the reviews, what's popular and what you can find for a good price. I really recommend trying different things out. For a pencil, here I'm using Blackwing 602 pencils. These are quite expensive, but these are my favorite pencils because they are really soft. And so if I was comparing them to do I have a regular pencil here? Yeah, here. For example, here's another pencil I bought at a local art store. This is a 2B pencil. I actually like 3B or 4B more. And that, I think you can compare that to this pencil. But the benefit of this pencil is that it doesn't smudge that much. So I like that, so that your sketches don't smudge too much. So I would recommend using an Blackwing, or if you find it too expensive, because they are expensive, I would just use basic 2B, 3B, 4B pencils. I like soft pencils. Some people like hard pencils. So again, also try out what you find best. So in other videos I will show how I actually draw, but I like to draw with these soft pencils because you don't have to press really hard. You can really sketch really light. And that's another thing I want to say, is when I'm drawing, don't try to draw too much from your shoulder, from your wrist, but try to draw from your shoulder. Try to use your whole arm when you are drawing. That gives you nicer lines. For example, can you see this movement here? Instead of this, your wrist is also not really good at rotating. It's good at doing this, but rotating not that much. And your shoulder has this ball, so that makes it good to rotate around. So I can really recommend it. There's also this eraser on the back of it. Nothing too fancy about this eraser, but it does the trick for me. To be honest, my sketchbook, I just use I'm using it in a really straightforward manner. I'm not doing super fancy finished illustrations. And of course you can do that, and then but also with that I would try out different stuff and see what works for you. But I also used a lot before I was using these kinds of pencils, these kinds of erasers. So these are kneading erasers. You can see it, you can pull them out. This one is, normally they are a bit softer, but I think because this one is old, maybe even little bit dirty, but this is really useful. I really like these kinds of erasers. For sharpener, just using a super simple sharpener with this cabin. So this is especially useful for when you're on the go, in the train or a bench. You can just fill your sharpen your pencil on the move really easy. So just something simple like this. I also have more expensive pencil sharpeners, but these things I do like the most. Also, I'm always losing stuff, so when I lose this one, I'm not as stressed out as I'm losing a more expensive one. So sketchbook, the pencil. Here's the Blackwing pencil box. So I order them a lot of times in these kinds of boxes. But I've said before, you can also just use order pencils. I would really recommend try out what works best for you. Fine liners. Maybe that's also really good to draw, because with pencil you can erase and you can start over again. With a fine liner, you will train yourself to be more confident. So I would also recommend you to practice drawing with your fine liner direct. So just to mix it up, and that's also with all these tools, I would encourage you to experiment. Try also, for example, ballpoint. I really love drawing with a ballpoint, because they are like a pencil. You can draw really soft with it and really hard. Dark lines, dark thick lines, but also really thin lines. And it's also really cheap, so you're not worrying too much about wasting stuff. And maybe the most important thing about having a sketchbook is that you can draw daily in it, and then you will build up confidence. You will build up drawing mileage. With drawing mileage, I mean that learning to draw takes a lot of time, and also it's really drawing is difficult, but most of all it takes a lot of time. So having a sketchbook and trying to fill at least one page a day will help you build up. So if you draw every day one page in your sketchbook, the end of the year you have 350 pages filled, and that really builds up. So I can really recommend trying to fill a page a day. And then it can just be one day you're drawing cats, the other day you're drawing animals, the other day you are doing a study, the other day you are drawing people in the train, and so on. Try to be creative with that. So a pencil, you also have these brush pens. Maybe that's fun for Inktober, to ink characters or maybe draw straight away. Markers, also really fun. Also, when you're using markers, think about what kind of paper sketchbooks you are using, because the paper is also really important for that. Or even these brushes. I can really recommend also practicing with this, because what I also like about sketchbook is then when you make a mistake or something, you can do Ctrl-Z or undo. You need to start over again or deal with the mistake, and you will really learn how to deal with it, and it will also help you learn to draw quicker. So I would really recommend, trust me, that drawing on paper first or learning first how to draw really helps a lot. So I have these sketchbooks. Or maybe a sketchbook is even too expensive for you, and then you can just use printing paper or any other paper you want to use. So also with printing paper, you can just, I think that's the most cheapest option there is. You can just practice, drawing. That's all about the tools. You don't want to be reliable too much on the tools. You want to learn how to draw. And in the next videos, I will show more about that. So I hope this all helps a little bit with that. So I can show a little bit of all the, for example, here you can see all the kinds of sketchbooks I've used. I really like this one, really thin papers, but and this hard cover, so it's nice with this metal border, so it's really nice in your back. Thin paper, easy to bring with you, a lot of pages in it. More of those art creation sketchbooks. Super cheap sketchbook, but to be honest, this worked also quite well, and I think it's also really good to learn how to draw on super cheap stuff. So let me summarize it up. Let me first explain. I think even when you want to draw digitally, and professionally I'm only drawing digitally, so for work or for my tutorials mostly. My sketchbook I mostly use to practice. After a hard day of work, I take my sketchbook, I go sit on the couch, go watch a TV show, and I start on the couch I start sketching random stuff and try to fill 1 page, 2 page in the evening. And I used to do this to bring with me to my work, drawing in the lunches, and that's also really useful. And maybe if you're a student or you have colleagues and you that also draw, you can draw in the lunches or after school or wherever, or go to the bar and go there drawing with friends, or go to a figure drawing class and draw there. So that is basically why I use a sketchbook, just basically to make a lot of drawings and to grow as an artist and to make the drawing mileage. So pick up whatever you have and start drawing, and pick a random theme, as you can see in my other sketchbook videos where I show all these different kinds of themes. So this is one of my most current sketchbooks, recent sketchbooks, and I actually have at this time I'm drawing in 2 sketchbooks straight away, because then one time I'm drawing in it and then I want to keep it clean, the pages, so I leave it open until I finish it and photograph it and then move on to the next time. And sometimes I'm working on 2 drawings at a time. But that's not even that important. So in this video, I want to show how, give inspiration on what you can draw in your sketchbook, because that can be really difficult. So for example, here I just pick a theme, drawing dinos. So I just start Googling some photos of dinos, and I start to come up with my own versions. And at first it can be really hard. At first, I would really recommend to find photos and really stick to those photos. Start super realistically, and you don't have to make a good realistic drawing, because if you're like me, you don't want to be a realistic artist. But it's really good to practice drawing from life, but it's not about the end result. It's about learning how to draw a character like this. And the next thing is you try to take that drawing and try to make it a bit more cartoony, caricature-like. So you're changing the proportions and etc. And how do you learn that? One way of learning that is, basically by my other tutorials where I show how to draw cartoon characters. You can study. You can also study those in your sketchbooks, right? Take your open the ebook or the PDF or the video on your phone and practice drawing those step by step. And by learning how I draw, step by step, you can apply that to learn how to break down photos in step by step. And that can be really hard. And the best thing to do is that just start doing that. But in the end, everything is based on real things. So, for example, this fighter jet is also based on a real photo. But here I change these proportions. When I start drawing this thing, I start with drawing the basic shapes first. For example, here's a shape like this, and then there's a shape like this, and here for the tail, and here for the engine. So I try to break down the realistic drawing in simple shapes. So first I maybe keep the proportions from the realistic drawing, and then I draw it again, but then more cartoony. And especially when you're starting out, I would really recommend it. Start trying to copy the drawing and break it down first as realistically you can. And you don't have to make a perfect realistic drawing, just try to learn from it. The same I did here with all these different ones. For example, here I'm drawing trees, and you can see these are still quite close to realistic trees, but a bit more stylized. Here you can see this S shape. For example, in my tutorials about how to draw animals, I'm also talking a lot about how to use S shapes or curves and etc. And you can see I'm applying that to draw these trees. So I'm looking at a photo of a tree or a real tree, and I think in shapes, and I think through how I learned to draw stuff, and that's basically my style, is how I see stuff. And you develop your style by learning your skills. And I get a lot of questions on how to develop your style. And I think that is mainly by drawing a lot and learning a lot of stuff. And somewhere your style is defined by what you do wrong. And that's not negatively meant, but it's more wrong what you the little things you do in the drawings, the way you draw stuff. Here I'm drawing stylized characters. Most of the time I'm drawing more of those classic animation kind of animation style characters, but sometimes I also like to draw graphically, because it's really good to try some things that are out of your comfort zone. For example, here you can see all the straight lines and those perfect curves, and usually I try to mix that up a little bit more. Drawing faces and humans. So here you can see that the theme is basically just really simple. And for example, if you're drawing people, you can go to a fashion shop or something, a clothing shop, and then you can see all those different kinds of costumes or clothing people wear, and you can use that as a reference. Here again, different styles. So this head is basically a ball. This is almost a square with a ball. I'm using all these basic shapes to draw characters. But again, the themes are not that special. Sometimes you can draw a dino and then just add a meteor, and you have a little story. Maybe I really love those artists that add even more story to their drawing. So if you can do that, add more story, think about it, go for it, because that's really useful. More dinos, more fishes. Sea creatures are also really useful to draw. So because it's really good to start drawing sea creatures, because you can start with those basic shapes. And then also a realistic fish is almost the same shape, it's only different proportions. So if you find it difficult to draw from life and how to transfer that to cartoon art, you can practice that with drawing fishes first, because they are so straightforward. More heads. See here the shape I used to draw this head. I will talk a bit about it more soon. Draw animals. Animals are always good. You can find them everywhere. Here I'm drawing my own mascot, a bit finding my own way in there. But that's something you can try out. Try to draw your own mascot, or try to draw robots.
houses as well. So that's really good to practice perspective in your sketchbook. What I did here, I just really softly first putting down the perspective lines. When I'm drawing digitally, I really work out those perspective points, but in a sketchbook you can't. And that's also why it's so useful to learn how to draw in your sketchbook, because you don't have those fancy tools, especially when you're drawing in the train, drawing the thing on your lap. Here, more fishes. See those basic shapes I'm using? So I would really recommend find some cool pictures of fishes and try them to break them down in basic shapes, and try maybe take one photo first and try to make draw the fish in 20 different ways. I really play around with different proportions. For example, octopuses, more heads. You can see I really repetitioning sometimes even the same shapes, but it's slightly different. Drawing girls with different hairstyles or almost the same hairstyle. Yeah, just practicing. Drawing birds. Pick your own favorite animal. Pick something you like, you would enjoy drawing, and go draw that. Drawing kids and focus on their eyes. It's also really good when you try to fill 2 pages and, for example, you're drawing kids and then you're going to make a deal with yourself. I'm going to focus on drawing the eyes as good as I can. This is an animation practice thing that a lot of animation students do. They take a flower back and try to draw it in a pose, and you learn how to draw poses with that and line of action. So that's also something you can try out. Drawing vehicles again, a car, and etc. Again, more dinos. Wow, I really draw a lot of dinos and monsters here. Drawing expressions. Try practicing drawing expressions in a ball. Maybe watch in a mirror and draw those different balls with different expressions. Again, use real life photos or a mirror, and use to learn how to simplify the real world and how to exaggerate stuff. For example, if you look like this in a mirror, it's not as pushed as this, but this is pushed a little bit more. So when you're learning how to draw, try to learn how to draw, how to push. So try to see here these basic shapes I try to use at these, drawing these robots. Yeah, again, more heads. Yeah, for example, when it's Halloween, you can draw a lot of Halloween. Now it's almost Christmas, so you can draw a lot of Christmas stuff. Or, I don't know, maybe you're from somewhere else and there's some other things you can be influenced by. Or maybe it was even better if you're living in one country. Try searching some stuff about a different country and try to make studies of those kinds of things, learn it. Yeah, drawing cars, more fishes, more girls, monsters. Try to be really diverse, more of those cushion or flower sacks drawings, bikes, scooters, animal heads, girls, fishes. I think I can come up with more different themes than I'm doing here when I'm now going through it. Old people, young people, middle-aged people. Again, more houses. Try to see if you're looking at my sketchbook, try to break all the things down in some really basic shapes. Drawing some props. When you want to work in the industry, drawing props can be also really good. So here, more props, explosions. Try to come up with all kinds of different stuff you see. And I want to show some older sketchbooks I have. So this is an old sketchbook from me. And here you can see some ballpoint sketches of people on the train station when I was traveling a lot to work. And this is what really helped me a lot, making these kinds of sketches. So taking my sketchbook with me and drawing people I see at the train station, etc. So I can really recommend that. Just practice that. And maybe at first it's super difficult and super hard, but don't give up. Try again. Analyze what you did wrong and try to learn from it and pick up again. And it can be really hard. And you can be really insecure about it. I was, and I still am. but don't try to listen too much to that voice that says it sucks, etc. Try to keep drawing and try to learn from it. And also look at different artists and try to think, what are they doing good and what I want to work on, and try to focus on that next time. So it's also really fun to take objects, props, and add eyes to it and a little bit more personality to it. This can be great for logos, for example. And that's also what you have in your sketchbook. When you are adding a lot of stuff in, drawing a lot of stuff in your sketchbook, you get all these books full with ideas you can use for your work, or maybe you want to make stickers or something. Here, these are, for example, buildings in Amsterdam. I was working in Amsterdam, so I could study all those buildings. What I did when I was walking from work to the train station, I took my phone and make pictures of the buildings I see, and then I take those pictures and I go drawing them in the train. So another thing you could do is drawing an interior in your sketchbook, and this can be really hard. What I did here is start with canvas, here this canvas, and then I draw the perspective you can see here, and the perspective are lines like this and really light. Then I draw in the walls on that perspective, following this perspective guides. Watch my perspective tutorials if you want to learn more about it. It's a bit too much to cover here. Then I'm drawing, and when I've those walls, I draw in the big shapes like you can see here. So here are these shapes, here this table, here this big box, this fridge, but it's basically a box. And then when I have that, I erase it with my eraser. And the cool thing about this eraser is you can really softly erase stuff. And then that's really useful with these kinds of erasers, and then draw on top of them, adding the more heavier lines, etc. For example, you can also draw here the inside of an environment on an angle you don't usually see that much, so from an angle in the top corner on the ceiling. And try to experiment as much as you can, so you become a really diverse artist. At least if you want that, but I think it's really beneficial to become a diverse artist, because that will make it easier to find you jobs, make your chances bigger, right? What I did here is, again, you can see I drew, when I was younger, I drew a lot with ballpoint in my sketchbook. Also, when you're working with ballpoint, you can't erase as easy. So you learn a lot from that. So here I took this character and tried to draw it in different poses. That's also something I can recommend. Maybe you take this character and try to draw it in different poses for practice. Or draw a famous character and try to draw it in different poses. You learn a lot from that. And try to think, when you're drawing a poses, try to think about what is this character thinking, and try to add that. So here is another one where I started with drawing the random shapes first. So I start with, I have vaguely an idea in my head what I want to draw. Then I just draw some random shape and I draw a head inside it. And I can really recommend that. You can also just try to fill a whole page with weird shapes and try to draw faces in it, or animals, or something else. It's really good exercise to push your creativity. So, but first of all, I would just say, take your sketchbook, pick off the first theme you come up with and start drawing.